And we now welcome Jeremy. Jeremy is a guest here in studio. He is seeking some help. He is working with our staff. He's a crack member of our staff. And he has agreed to. What is your particular problem?
It depends on who you ask.
I'm asking you.
Me, right now, my shoulder's been what's bothering me. It's been kind of a long-term issue from when I played baseball back in high school, and I basically pitched on it when it was dislocated.
Right-handed or left-handed?
I was actually a switch hitter, but I pitched right-handed.
So your right shoulder hurts?
It's actually my left shoulder, funny enough.
You pitched right-handed, but your left shoulder hurts?
Yeah, I got into a bit of an accident and kind of put it out of place, and then I kept pitching on it.
Have you seen doctors, chiropractors?
Yeah, I did physical therapy for about 6.5 months. Still see a chiropractor every time I'm home. I try to keep up with it and keep strengthening exercises, but
massage.
Yeah, it never.
The whole works.
It never quite works out, and I always have pain and just
Have you ever been spiritually healed?
No, I have not been spiritually healed.
Are you skeptical?
Yes.
All right, now tell me Bruce, what do you do? Take us through your method.
Okay, the method is pretty simple. I've met Jeremy. He seems like a great guy.
Doesn't matter if he's a great guy or not, right?
I think it does. Right. That's just my opinion.
Well, thank you.
Now, Jeremy, what I want you to do is I know this might sound a little crazy, but what doesn't today, open your mouth ever so slightly, and I'm going to attempt to do this. No, not like you're, more like you're sipping through a straw. That's perfect. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try, because I have a very non-invasive way that I do this, so I'm going to try to make a difference or bring the energies through me to you as a conductor that I am, and that you are going to not have to have me touch your shoulder. So let's see if any improvement is good improvement. Can you say that?
Yeah, definitely.
Any improvement is good improvement?
Any improvement is good improvement.
Agreed? Okay. So maybe close your eyes for this so you have more of an understanding of yourself, of what you're feeling. Okay. So we're going to just enjoy the ride, okay? If you are feeling anything, let us know. Okay, now open your eyes to a new beginning, because it is, and see how your shoulder feels.
It's still stiff and has kind of
Okay, is there any relief at all?
It feels a little less tense.
Good, okay, that's a good start. Well, let me try again here. Larry's made us aware that the time is of the essence here, and we're going to do the best we can. So I just want you to say the word goodbye, because you know what that means in this case, right? Like you're evicting an unwanted tenant, maybe?
Yeah.
And get that in your mind, visualize that. And when you're ready, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Okay? See how it feels now.
It kind of released, and then I moved my shoulder up, and it all came back.
It all came back, okay. I won't take responsibility for that.
Right.
Now, again, one more time, goodbye. When you're ready. Because you're doing your own healing here, you have to understand. I am a conduit or an extraordinary helper for you. That is what I hope. So.
Goodbye.
Okay. Now, easy this time, okay, because you don't want to re-injure. So just relax and do it and see how it feels.
A little bit looser.
Cool. All right.
All right, Jeremy, thank you.
Hello, my name is Anne Sharman. I'm a psychic clairvoyant and tarot reader. I also work as a past life regressionist, and I teach spiritual development and meditation. And today I'm going to tell you how you can work with your psychic clairvoyance and develop it. In this video, I'm going to tell you how you can give psychic readings to others. The way that I do my psychic readings are to give people card readings, or I may tune into them intuitively and just feel what I'm getting for them. When I start a psychic reading, I always explain to people how I'm going to work and what I'm going to do, and ask them what they're looking for. If they want to have communication with the spirit world, well, that's something that I can use my mediumistic skills on. If they wish to have a card reading, that is more a psychic reading. I ask the people that I'm going to give a reading to take this pack of cards and to shuffle them for me, or just mix them up a little bit. I then have my own pack here, which I use and I shuffle as well. I then ask them to pick 6 cards from the pack they've shuffled and put them down face down. And before I look at them, I like to take their hands and tune into their energy and just pick up any information that I might get from them. You may wish to not use cards, you may wish to just tune into the energy, or maybe you like to take hold of something like their jewellery and do a psychometry reading on them, which is to pick up the energy from that person. Using the cards is the way that I find most appropriate for my readings. And really, when you're giving somebody a reading, you really do need to make sure that they're at ease. You also need to be very mindful of your own personal responsibility and not to tell that person that they're going to have an accident or someone's going to die. This is not something that we recommend as psychics and mediums. But if you're giving somebody a reading and you feel something's going to happen to them, or you feel there's something that you really don't know how to tell them, you just have to learn to put it in a way that you feel appropriate. When you're giving a reading to somebody, it's normally a good experience for them, a happy experience. You need to tell them to take the best out of it. The one thing I would say about giving a psychic reading to somebody is to not let them take over. This can happen sometimes if you've got a client that's very strong or is extremely worried about a situation. They may tend to talk too much, and this interrupts your energy. So you really do need to know how to take control of a reading. As a friend of mine says, don't let the tail wag the dog. You need to be able to be firm, and you also need to be able to tell them exactly what you see for them. Don't worry about what's coming up or how you see things. You'll be able to, with experience, put that into words, and also let them ask you questions at the end of the reading if there's anything that they want to know. And that's how you give a psychic reading.
Hello everybody, my name is Laura Schwam Anthony. For those of you that don't know who I am a master psychic healer, which means I help individuals create wellness on all levels of their being, their body, their mind, and their spirit. And so how I do this is through different holistic and spiritual principles and practices that I don't just educate people on, but I live by these same principles and practices. And so I truly know that they do work. I've seen transformation within my own lives, aside from the many, many, many clients that I have. Now understand, I teach online through arenum.com and through wiziq.com. So my clientele is really expansive because of the internet. I can take people online, or I can see them in person. For those of you that don't have access to an email, there's always the phone. Through arenum.com, you could actually even call and get readings, or you can call the number on my website, Pure Energy Healer, and get readings. It's really an exciting time in evolution. We're really evolved when it comes to technology. Really, truthfully, we are. I mean, we don't have to go and work at a place from 9 to 5 anymore. We can work from home. We can have a clientele that's ever expanding because of the internet. It's really, really we have evolved to a point that we physically need to evolve now, personally and physically and spiritually. We need to awaken in order to catch up to this really transformational time within our world, where on a technical level we have evolved to the point where we can shoot an email in a half a second around the world, where we can have access to pictures, to things and places so far away in a blink of an eye. I mean, that's technology. I mean, even with our health, with the medical, with the drugs that they're coming out with, not that I'm for, everyone taking pharmaceuticals, but bottom line is there are many people that need to take pharmaceuticals, and if they need to take them, best to have the least amount of side effects, best for it to really work and extend a person's life. Bottom line is, though, we've evolved so much on a medical level that we've become dependent on medical and pharmaceuticals to take care of our health, and that's not really living from truth, and that's living more from a victim state of consciousness. Victim state of consciousness is just a way of being where you're not taking responsibility for yourself, where you're not being proactive within your own life to do the things which you need to do for yourself. And I don't even want to just say work, but we always make our minds go straight to money. When we think of people that are not successful, we think that they don't have money. That's the first thing that we think of, really from a physical perspective. But the truth of the matter is, those people that don't have money, they don't have any spiritual foundation. They don't have a strong sense of character. They don't have a strong structure about themselves because they don't know who they are. And so understand, when we don't know who we are, how it begins to shape our life. Shapes our life where we perceive that we are as good as the experiences that unfold within our lives. That we are only as good as the house that we live in or the car that we drive. There's a real distorted sense of self. And there's a real distorted sense of security within that sense of self. And so the truth of the matter is, spirituality is a tool for people to understand and connect with their inner being. It's also a way for an individual to combat emotional energy that they acquire due to being too fearful, being depressed because they're stuck in the past, being anxious, from being imbalanced physically. You can use spirituality to heal if you need to balance yourself emotionally. You can use spirituality to balance yourself mentally. Because when we know how to understand the signs and the symbols that God brings into our lives every single day, and we're able to really feel a sense of belonging through our purpose, our soul's purpose, our dharma. When we understand that we're not here by mistake, but we're here by God's great design, and the truth of the matter is That is what Dharma is. Dharma is your soul's path. And in order for you to understand that you have a soul's path, you have to understand that you're not here by accident. You're here because God chose you, and you chose this because you have to agree to it, because we have free will. So it's not like God can say, I'm going to make you go down on earth. It's something that you volunteer to do because you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to evolve. So when you go and when you come down here, when you incarnate onto the physical plane, God gives you lessons. And He gives you those lessons through being spiritually set up by the people that come into your life, by the experiences that unfold in front of you, and what you choose to make of those experiences. Many people judge the rest of their life upon those experiences, and they judge them wrongly. And many people stop their lives due to those experiences. They let those experiences recreate the rest of their life. And it's almost like they're unconscious to it. They are unconscious to it 100%, but they also know that they're doing something to contribute. And so it's to understand that spiritual healing happens when we take responsibility, that we take responsibility for ourselves on every level, not just physically, but every single level, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And how does one do that? Well, they're proactive within their life. They don't just pay someone to take care of their bills. They actually want to learn about their own finances and make sure that they have a hand in everything. They're not going to leave their health up to a doctor. Yes, when you need to go to a doctor for surgery, obviously you're going to go to a doctor, but you're not going to maintain your health by going to a doctor. You're the one that's going to maintain your health by every day getting up and eating the right foods. You can take a doctor's advice, but a doctor isn't going to be feeding you and walking around after you saying that you can't eat certain foods. Is to know how your physical constitution is, and then it's to understand about the food that you're eating, and it's to be conscious to your behavior, because we grow older, and as we grow older we lose certain things, which is normal, but it doesn't need to be a painful, horrific experience as one gets older. The truth of the matter is, because many people are so emotionally imbalanced from never healing and never clearing their emotional baggage, they acquire their happiness through foods and through outside things. And the foods which are considered love substitutes would be anything sugary, anything carbohydrate, anything that's a real like comfort food. And real comfort food, changes the energy fast. It's like, so you're going to eat pound cake and ice cream, or you're going to eat, you're going to eat these real sugary foods or really salty foods to change the energy, and then that's why people have problems with chocolate, because they have to have it, and it releases a happy hormone. We know that. So we know that we're creating the energy we're trying to physically do it outside of ourselves, but really inside of ourselves is supposed to release that energy. You know, inside of ourselves, we're supposed to be able to control that. We're not supposed to have to eat a candy bar every day, or have ice cream every day, or, you know, smoke a pack of cigarettes a day, or have a few cocktails every single day. We shouldn't need to do these things every day, or have caffeine every day. But we condition ourselves to feel better with. We become dependent on these outside love substitutes. And it doesn't even need to be with food. It could be shopping. You could go to the track. It's an addictive behavior, but understand, where does the addictive behavior come from? It comes from an imbalance. An imbalance of not really knowing who you are, of being disconnected, of trying to fill an emptiness with something that is outside. And so when we live this way, we're not really living our truth. We're actually living very compromised, and we're not awake, and we're not proactive, and we're usually the victim to our life situations. Because we're not proactive. We don't know what's going on. And we don't know what's going on because we don't really trust ourselves. And being that we don't trust ourselves, and we don't trust anyone else either. And so life becomes extremely limited when these are our perceptions. We begin to live through like tunnel vision. Truth. And so when you're living through tunnel vision and other people aren't, they can feel that there's something off. You don't need to see, they could see it, but they sense it. They sense when a person's energy is overreactionary, we all can. When a person has a lot of nervous energy, they smoke a lot, they talk a lot, they're not comfortable with themselves. It's obvious. They may offer to do all the time and be very self-sacrificing. And they overcompensate for the way that they feel. Understand, where did the feeling come from? It came from a thought. And it's to understand, we get lost within these beliefs. We get lost within these thoughts. And we become so unconscious to them. It actually becomes comfortable to be uncomfortable. And then we don't understand how we're living. We don't understand that we're living more of a reactionary life. Not really living from what's happening in the now. We're more or less living from past experiences that we didn't process. Meaning we didn't learn. And so when we don't learn, we stay asleep. And we keep doing what we've always done. We don't realize that it's up to us to become awake, to finally come to a place within our lives and say, why is that happening? Why does that keep happening? What am I doing? Okay, let me try something else. Many people feel they don't have a choice. And it's by the way that they have been conditioned. So it's to understand it's your conditionings that are what make up your karma. So these experiences that create your thoughts, that create your habits, are what creates your karma. Are you conscious to your behavior? If you're living undesirable life experiences and have run into a problem for some time, whether it's usually within a relationship or money or anything having to do with self-worth, if you don't have self-worth, you're not going to be able to have abundance within your life. If you don't have self-love, you're not going to be able to be a magnet for someone to come into your life and love you. And so this is how God communicates to you. So understand that spirituality is a way for you to understand the language of God. And it's almost like also gives you the rule book on how to think a certain way and how it can be easier to think a certain way and why you would want to. And it broadens your perspective, so you can broaden your perspective of yourself. If you see yourself as meek and limited due to the experiences that you live in because of what's going on within the world, again, victim consciousness, then you're not going to be able to see the opportunities that always come into our lives to support us. Now, those opportunities might not be gigantic opportunity. You may not see it as big. Many times they're little opportunities that bring you to a vehicle that's going to bring you because you needed to learn. So understand every single person, every single experience that unfolds within your life, there's a lesson to be learned. There's a lesson. It's to learn from those lessons to gain a greater and wider perception of yourself. So you get to know yourself. You get to know God through getting to know yourself. I hope you enjoyed this talk. My name is Laura Schwam Anthony, also known as Laura, the Voice of Truth. My website is pureenergyhealer.com. Sign up for my newsletter. I give out very, very, very great information, I think, on holistic and spiritual principles and practices. And what I mean by that being great, it's information that you could really utilize. I wouldn't be a spiritualist if I didn't walk the hardships of many of my clients. I can feel what they are going through because I've went through it. I know what it feels like. I know what got you there, and I know how to get you out because I've lived my life. And I lived from a very limited perception. I mean, my father had over 20 sicknesses and diseases. Lived in fear. My mother, very imbalanced. And so I know what it's like to view myself through my parents and through my environment and through what I saw within the physical. And I saw how distorted the experiences that I was creating for myself really were. And that's exactly what it was. I can't even say distorted and bad and negative and just everything negative about not knowing who you are and living in fear, really. Bottom line, as distorted and fearful and horrible, the worst of it is fear, and it's to understand that we all have love and fear, and we all react. And spirituality teaches us not to react, teaches us to become the witness, teaches us how to not have to live our reactions. You know, our reactions come from really our conditionings, how we were taught to deal with stress, how we were taught to get along and survive. And so if you didn't come from a strong spiritually sound family, and you came from actually a spiritually sick family, one that had addictions, one that lived in fear, one that lived, I can't even explain any worse than really living in fear. I don't know any other hell that there is than to live in a constant, every single day state of fear. I lived it. I saw what the imbalances were that developed within my own physical body. Everything from anxiety to depression to addictive behavior to needing to do compulsive things to create my own energy shifts. within my body because I felt so low and tired and lethargic. I couldn't learn. I had brain fog. I mean, you would teach me something I would forget a minute later. It was like ADD, and it was because I wasn't present. I couldn't be present. When you suppress those emotions, it's not like they dissipate. They're still very much there. They're just held within your psychic body. And so it's these experiences that wind up shaping our life unconditionally, unconsciously. They actually, and I say unconditionally because they become like old friends. It feels comfortable to live in fear. If there's nothing to worry about, we begin to create things to worry about because it's a condition. It's a habit. It's a reflex. And all depending on what home you grew up in. Where did you grow up? What school? What friends? What contributed to your childhood? And how did you perceive yourself through these childhood experiences? Were they uplifting? Were they supportive? Or was it fearful? You know, it's not uncommon if children live in fear that they're going to view themselves as helpless. And it's not really that they're helpless, it's that they become helpless because they become unconscious to the fact that they don't put any energy out. They become paralyzed. Paralyzed with fear. They can't think. They can't think, they can't move, they can't react. They become to hate themselves because they can't rely on themselves. They don't trust themselves. They just know whatever they have to do with it is going to be wrong and imbalanced. And so it's to understand spiritual disease is spreading throughout the world, and it is because there's so much imbalance. And there's so much imbalance because we've only lived from a physical perspective. And it's because no one really understood about the spirit body. They didn't really understand about emotions. They didn't really understand about much of anything aside from what had to do with survival, what had to do with ego. God was taught more from a dogmatic perspective. Whenever we're taught from a dogmatic perspective, it creates fear. Because dogmatic perspective is all about higher authority, hierarchy that reads literature that they went to college for a very long time in order to translate spiritual scripture. They couldn't just walk in to a church and they wouldn't be considered hierarchy of a church or a spiritual establishment if they didn't go to school for years and years and years and read books and books and books, you know, that had to do with spirituality and religion. But understand, again, it was taught from a physical perspective, not from an emotional one, not from a spiritual one. And without that physical, without that emotional connection, we don't learn. Individuals don't learn. They stay stuck because they have no reason to. We get motivated by our emotions. We push harder and we move further and we try harder and we see different ways of doing things and we don't give up because we know there is a God and we know that there is a lot more to life than what we can see within the physical realm. That is, if we have a strong spiritual structure about ourselves. We understand that things are happening all the time, even if you're physically not seeing them happen. Just by the thought that you think and the energy that you're giving out. It's to be able to understand when you become imbalanced what that means. needs. It's not to become disengaged from it and turn it off, because then every situation is going to hold that energy. Relationships are always going to hold that type of energy. Whatever it is that you stepped out of. So if it was fear, I didn't want to feel that because psychologically I was afraid. I didn't want to experience abandonment. I didn't want to have to sense failure or defective. Listen, we've all felt those emotions. We've all been in situations where we felt that. Where we felt that, the experience unfolded the way that it did because of something that we did. And then we identified ourselves with that. When we do that, we become disconnected from ourselves. That shows God, tells God that we don't like that part of ourselves. We're not accepting that part of ourselves. We don't want to be that part of ourselves. And so we stay asleep to it. And so spiritual healing is about becoming the witness to it so that you can embrace who you are, accept it, and take from it the knowledge that you needed to learn so that you can have a wider perspective, so you can co-create with God the way that you were intended to do. I hope you enjoyed this talk. My name is Laura Schwam Anthony, and I am a master psychic healer. I help people through different holistic and spiritual practices. I do psychic soul readings that tell people what their unconscious samskaras are, which are their spiritual blocks. I help them see life differently, and in the change of perception, it creates healing for them because they can see how they contributed to that experience and they can change their behavior. And in changing their behavior, they actually become their own healer because they're doing the work. But they can see different things happen within their life. The spiritual block is where we get stuck. We get stuck in a perception of what is. And that usually is over fear. We get stuck because we're afraid. And if we're afraid, a lot of times it's because we're ignorant to understanding who we are, the way that spiritual laws work, the way that we're connected to the world. We might even be looking at God as someone that lives on top of a cloud and that isn't forgiving, isn't loving. We're not looking at God as something that lives inside of us, something that lives forever, lives through us, through the many, many stories and many, many, many life experiences that we all live. Again, my name's Laura Schwam Anthony, also known as Laura, the Voice of Truth. And if you are interested in taking a class or getting a reading or getting a soul clearing, where you can learn how to release those emotions that you're subconsciously and consciously holding on to that are not supporting you, you can go to my website, pureenergyhealer.com, and again, sign up for my newsletter with that great material I was talking about earlier. Tune into my talk show on Blog Talk Radio called 30 Minutes of Awareness with Laura, the Voice of Truth, where I do take callers and I do mini psychic readings during the show. Again, that's 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Blog Talk Radio. And you can access the show actually by going to my website, pureenergyhealer.com, and going to the radio show page and clicking on the link. And if you wanted to meet with me during the day, you could always click on the link that's there during the day called arenum.com. And you can meet me in the chat room. It is for free to talk in the chat, but to get a reading, there is a fee. It is $1.99 per minute. which is a lot more expensive really than if you just go through me, which is Pure Energy Healer. My rate is $50 for a half an hour and $100 for an hour. Okay, I think I covered it all. And so until next time, be true to yourself. This has been Laura, the Voice of Truth. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to email me at pureenergyhealer70@gmail.com.